Lots of pictures and videos are taken during these inspections. I have been so many places where I've had an employer I'm representing saying, it didn't happen, it didn't happen. I get to the meeting and there's an 8x10 showing it happened. So, or there's a video, and sit there and say, so understand that, when it comes to trying to gather a case, this is a big issue with regards to making sure you're doing the right thing. Air and noise monitoring. In a lot of places they determine, and it could be other types of monitoring that might be of all sorts of physical hazards. I've done radiation, for example. And it may be more than one day. They may end up, I've seen inspectors come in, and these are federal inspectors, and it's like anybody has told you, try not to get the federal government to come after you. They have a lot more resources than you do. So I've seen inspections that should have only been a day go day after day after day. And you really have very little recourse to sit there and say, no mas, we'd like you to wrap this up. Yes?
So I guess if you have an especially good cafeteria, you don't really want to send the OSHA's inspector there for lunch because they might decide, oh, I like it here, I'll stay on.
Well, there's a lot to say, as part of the conduct. How comfortable do you want the inspector to be? My position is we are professionals, we are polite, we don't want people to be comfortable. Every question, everything, can you explain to me what? Just make it as not as difficult, I don't want to say that, but make it as challenging as possible, because the bottom line is, this isn't your core business walking around an inspector. You're not making any money doing this, all right? You want to actually get back to your normal job, and you want to get this operation and handle it as professionally as possible. And that's part of the nature of what we're talking about here. Cost of a OSHA visit, okay. Part of the nature, we get lots of calls that says, geez, can you come in here tomorrow? I said, why? Because an OSHA inspector came in yesterday or today and started saying, I said, sure, we'll come in. That's happened. So sometimes it's, you got to get involved anyway, so it's good to do anything like this proactively. Negotiations, whether you hire someone like Elsa Hope Negotiations or you get involved with an attorney as negotiations, that starts to cost a little bit. Meetings, urgent time frame, often OSHA tries to dictate the time, even though you can't afford to take the time, you're going to need to spend time with the inspector. Fines, reputation, these are all different costs of a visit. And they say whether it's warranted or not, okay. Often OSHA will come in there, not necessarily because someone got hurt or there's an actual safety violation, it's because you might be on a list. And if you're on that list, it's your turn. So the trick is to try to be as professional, and I'll tell you one thing, if someone handles me professionally, and back even when I was doing an OSHA inspector, says, do you have a health and safety card? Yes, we do. Let me bring in the worker representative, whether it's union or not, who's on our safety committee. We have this, we have that. An OSHA inspector, you spend very little time. Okay, thank you very much. Boom, next inspection. So to be organized, to be proactive is a very good thing with inspectors. Here are the citation. Other than serious, which we used to call it non-serious, can be up to $7,000. And usually, when you deal with serious and non-serious violations, it has to do with what is the potential outcome of that violation. In other words, because of that violation, someone could get hurt or seriously hurt. And if that's the case, then that tends to be a serious violation. I'll give you an example. If someone's working in an elevated platform, working up a ladder, fall protection, if they fall, they can get seriously hurt. So most fall protection issues are serious. Electrical are serious. Machine handling, lift trucks are serious. So these are all areas because that violation, whatever the issue happens to be, someone can get hurt. Paperwork violations, record keeping, they tend to be non-serious because just because you didn't write down the right thing, or you didn't have the right piece of paper, you didn't have the material safety data sheet, whatever it happens to be, no one is immediately going to get hurt as a result of that. Okay, so that's kind of an easy way of classification. Willful violations, This is one of these underutilized things with OSHA, and it's always one of these things because it's very easy to prove a willful violation. But OSHA has not really gone after this to the level that they could. David Michaels, who's the OSHA administrator now under Obama, he's very much going after, very interested in willful violation. What a willful violation is a wanton disregard, that an employer knew about the violation, had the authority to take action, did not take action, and it's a violation. You know, OSHA inspectors say that the employee is doing something that's out of compliance. Doesn't mean they have to get hurt. So the conditions are really knowledge, authority, and there's a violation. If you can put all three of these together, they consider that a willful violation. Now, what I always teach people is you think of your classic willful violation as that psychopathic manager who says to the person, as the fire is going, as the trench is starting to fall, go into that trench, do your job, or you're going to get fired. He goes into the trench, he gets crushed. You know, that's your classic, you know, scenario of willful violations. Well, that's not the way it works. What typically goes is that you have a supervisor, you have a manager that sees somebody doing something. You know, it's a violation. But they're doing their job. The good workers are doing their job. They see somebody doing something, and they say, okay, I'm not going to act on that. You condone it. And that's where you get a lot of the action, okay? Still a willful violation, but you have an issue is not what you did to have it happen, what you didn't do. And so that's part of the nature of all programs and supervision, that it's not necessarily a person or supervisor that's not committed to do their job, that they're not anti-safety, but they often say, look, I don't want to take action because the person's doing their job. You know, I don't want to slow down production in a sense like this. And so that's always a dangerous situation. Repeats, and this is where the database gets involved. If you have a violation here and, in 2012, and it turns out you had the same violation in 2007, and they only go back 5 years, that's one good thing, then it's considered a repeat. And that's when the fines can be doubled and tripled and quadrupled and things like this. It also has to do with, from a geographical standpoint, if your plant in Des Moines had that violation 3 years ago, then you have the one in New Jersey has the same violation within the same company veil, that can be considered a repeat. Failure to correct is you get a violation, you negotiate it, could be machine guarding, could be a training, and then they come back and they find out you didn't do anything about it. And that's a failure to abate, failure to correct is another violation. So these are the classifications of penalties and citation. All right, why manage safety? Okay, cost. It's a big cost when you start dealing with the cost of injuries and illnesses. $170 billion annually. A lot of hidden costs. So what are some of the hidden costs? Okay, you start dealing the impact, obviously, on families, the impact on employees, co-workers, the impact on the culture of the company. We had a consulting engineering firm I worked with, and if you ever went to Syracuse, there's a big mall that is right off of 81 called the Carousel Mall, and that was built on a very an oil contaminated area, a bunch of terminals there. So it was what is known as the brownfields. And a consulting engineer got involved with very serious citations from OSHA. And I was training these people at the time, you know, and I would bring them in. I had nothing to do with the violation. They had a number of citations. The morale in that company, there was a bunch of young engineers, young consultants, probably about 20 years ago. They basically said, we're not sure we'd like to work with a company that has basically been cited all these things, and the position they have is that they weren't going to do anything about it. You know, they pretty much dismissed it as being whatever issue. And you know, I also worked with the management, and I finally, you know, I closed the door and said, look, it's really up to you, but let me give you feedback of the negative impact in the culture of your company. Because you know, everybody wants to do the right thing. In this case, You want to be associated with an organization that you feel is a quality organization.